Wex On, Wex Off starts right now with Jason Wexler.
From the Sixth Borough in Hoboken, New Jersey, Wex On, Wex Off starts right now. If you haven't already hit that like and subscribe button on YouTube, go ahead and do so. All right, a jam-packed Week 6 in the NFL, and to talk about it now, joining us, WSIL Channel 3's sports anchor and my college buddy, Jake Siegel. Jake, how you doing?
Doing well. I'm glad to almost put a bow on another week 6 of an NFL season, and we had some really good games that everyone got a chance to see.
Jake, you're a person in particular of mine that, really has no concept of time. Where does it stand in your head that we're 6 weeks through the season here?
It's kind of flown by pretty fast. I mean, you look at today's date; it's the 16th of October, and suddenly here we are, and you've got a lot of teams who still haven't really figured out who they are. A lot of people are under 500, a bunch at 500, a couple over 500, and the two NFL powers who were unbeaten yesterday fell. So we're still in this phase where we're still trying to figure out who's good and who's not, I think.
And I think that's the beauty of the NFL, right, Jake? Any given Sunday?
I think more so this past Sunday than any other Sunday. I mean, we saw two, like I said, two NFL powers go down, and the Giants almost knocked off the third power in the Bills. So it really is any given Sunday or Thursday or Monday. Yep.
I think that's really what keeps the NFL so interesting. And listen, Jake, I had a wonderful weekend despite an incomplete pass on an untimed down there to give the Bills a 14-9 victory as former Bills and Browns quarterback Tyrod Taylor unable to connect there on the last play for a touchdown. But Jake, the game might have been lost there in that first half.
Certainly a possibility. I think a lot of it comes down to the time management situation that occurred as the Giants were knocking on the door of the Bills late in that first half. With under 20 seconds left to play, and they just couldn't manage to somehow get the ball clocked or out of bounds, and what should have been a 9-0 Giants lead turned into a 6-0 Giants lead. And don't know if that would have been the total determining factor of the result of the game, but it would have given them at least a 2-possession game heading into halftime. So some of it's understandable. You bring in a quarterback who hasn't played in a long time off the bench, and he's still getting his feet wet, learning the system. But something like that still
But
kind of
how do you audible to a run there? You've been playing football your entire life.
I agree. You shouldn't. I mean, I didn't even like the formation. If I would have spread 5 people out wide, and honestly, if I was going to run it, I would quarterback sneak it, but like with everyone out wide. But it's probably a situation where you throw, or you just you just throw,
You
or you
had to
just spike
throw
the
because
ball.
if you run it and you don't get it, you don't have a chance to set yourself up again. You don't have a chance to clock it, and the clock runs out. And man, Dable and Tyrod were getting into it. I'm sure he said, "What the f are you doing?"
And we saw him say something like that to Daniel Jones a few weeks ago in a bunch of those games where he was throwing interceptions, and you just look at him like, what's going on? Seems like there's a big disconnect between the play calling, the offensive staff, and the quarterback play. It seems like they're trying to get the most out of their guys, but it seems like they've both maybe have reached their ceiling. Have reached that peak of like, this is all he's going to be, and we have to accept that.
Well, but Dable did an extraordinary job getting the Giants into the playoffs last year and was really able to maximize the potential of Daniel Jones. And Tyrod Taylor has some similar attributes. You argue, Jake, that he's the more talented quarterback, Tyrod.
I believe so. I think it should be a permanent changing of the guard. The only problem is the Giants' bank account says otherwise when they invest over $135 million in Daniel Jones. It's too much money to sit down. So management believes he's the long-term guy. I don't, but I don't work for the Giants. So, that's their right. That's their call. But you have to think last year a fluke, right? The Giants got there. They won some big games. They managed to get there. They played in a division that was a little bit weaker last year, right? Dallas wasn't that, super last year, and Washington wasn't super last year. The Eagles were, but I think Tyrod should be the guy moving forward, even though they lost the game. I mean, losing by 5 or 6 points to the Bills, who are an AFC power, I don't think it's necessarily a bad loss, but it was certainly a winnable game. I mean, the game was in reach for the Giants really up until the final minutes.
Well, you get pass interference there in the end zone and an untimed down. I would have probably just given it to Barkley on a direct snap. He's your best offensive player.
Yes, I still think I would have thrown it, but obviously
Would you have
when the
thrown it
ball,
a few years ago if you were the Seahawks?
no, but I think Lynch is a better running back than Barkley. So I think it's a different. I think it's Barkley's been
But it's
hurt.
just the yard, Jake. We talk about the tush push. That's all we're talking about.
Yeah, but but if you don't get in, you second guess yourself and you throw it. Throwing it from the one could be. I mean, the Giants had the right play call in the end, and even on the untimed down, there was still illegal contact on the defense that they failed to throw a flag for. They should have had another
Exactly.
untimed down.
You're exactly right. I said that.
It was
My friend next to me, the Bills fan, didn't want to hear it, but
I mean, I think it's a situation where you can make the case that the refs in this game kind of ruined the result of the game, right? They kind of spoiled it. I think that, even the ball was certainly catchable, it was in his hands, but it would have been a very circus-like catch, very difficult catch to pull in. But there's no doubt in my mind there was illegal contact because Waller had beat the defender and had a step or two on him, and without that tugging of the jersey, he wouldn't have been able to catch up. So I think it's so important to say that there should have been a flag when I know we're playing the coulda, woulda, shoulda game, but I think there most definitely should have been a flag, and I think the refs botched it at the end.
Giants now 1-5, Bills now 4-2. Keep it in New York. The New York Football Jets shocked the world, knock off one of two previously undefeated teams heading into yesterday's action. The Jets beat the Philadelphia Eagles on a late game interception of Jalen Hurts.
And that was pretty much the storyline. The Jets defense kept them in the ball game, and the offense played well enough to win them the game in the end. It was a Breece Hall run that scored the game-winning touchdown, and a lot of credit I think has to be given to the Jets quarterback, not named Aaron Rodgers. Zach Wilson. A lot of people have not liked him from the get-go. A lot of people thought he was a bust. A lot of people still think he's a bust and not a good player, but he recently played, a couple weeks ago, the Jets played the Chiefs, and he had his best outing. He actually outplayed Patrick Mahomes in a 6-point loss and fumbled the game away, but he played very well statistically. So he's getting better this week against the Eagles defense, who's been vaunted for a couple of years now. He also showed signs of sticking in there, making a couple of just enough plays to keep them in that game, and it avoided a blowout situation. And I'm not saying Zach Wilson's anywhere near the level of Aaron Rodgers, but I think Aaron Rodgers is helping Zach Wilson taking a major step forward this year. Even though these games are close for the Jets, they won this. This is a statement win for a Jets team that's never beaten an Eagles team in league history and franchise history. So I think it's the Jets are certainly looking like they're on a better direction than the Giants in terms of those two teams.
Oh, most definitely. And look, you could say Zach Wilson's not this, Zach Wilson's not that. Zach Wilson's all you got, so it's time to make chicken salad out of chicken you know what.
And that's been part of the Jets' problem. Is a lot of people will say the quarterback's been holding them back, but lately he is still holding them back, but he's keeping them in games. You lose to the Chiefs by 6 points. You lose, you go ahead and beat the Eagles. I mean, those are two, obviously the win is massive. The loss is still a moral victory, I think, to lose to a team that went on to win the Super Bowl a year ago. So I don't think that's a bad loss, but if Wilson can keep them in games, it's the defense. That Jets defense is quite good, and they'll be able to win a lot of games if Zach Wilson can keep it close. We've got a lot of football left, a solid 10+ weeks, so we'll see if that happens. But so far, he could have been playing a lot worse, and I think that was one of the big, arguably the upset of the year. I think the other upset, I mean, you could say Cleveland might be a little bit better, higher on that list, but this will go down. I mean, this one hurt the bookies in Vegas yesterday. I mean, not many people thought the Jets would win the game, let alone keep it close. And that's exactly what they did. They did both of those things.
I thought the Giants, by the way, were going to lose by 14 points. And
yeah, I think
they were able to keep that close. Significant to some, live under at 22.5 didn't hit either.
I think coming into the game, the Bills might have been 12 or 11.5-point favorites, and I think they only scored 14 points the whole game. So Buffalo seems like they've taken a step back. They really came out strong against Miami a couple weeks ago. Then they lost to Jacksonville the week before. Now they come up and they beat the Giants thanks to a late fourth, all because of the fourth quarter. I mean, it was a 6-0, it was a tight game all the way through, and it was not till the final quarter of play that the Bills actually woke up.
Jake, we'll move now to the other previously undefeated team, the 49ers. Lose off a chip shot field goal.
And yeah, it was more. I mean, it never should have came down to that. They were 5-0 and a power, but Christian McCaffrey went out with a bad oblique. He got hurt. They couldn't really bounce back in the running game after that. Cleveland kept him in check, and they won with a quarterback not named Deshaun Watson. and it's really impressive. They won with a guy named PJ Walker, who was a backup for a while, played a little bit of quarterback for the Panthers in his day, but
And I
not
believe
anyone
played a
who.
little bit for the XFL as well.
Yep, and he's not somebody who's going to scare you, but again, kind of like Zach Wilson, did just enough to keep his team in the game, and a big credit to the Browns defense because Brock Purdy was handed his first ever loss in the NFL. I mean, people lose every week. This guy has played I think he was 10-0 coming into the game as a starter, 11-0. Suffered, so the guy has never had to lose. He's never tasted a losing defeat. That changed because of the Browns, and it has to be by far the biggest upset in the season at this point, 6 weeks in. I mean, the Niners were unbeaten, and they leave with a bad loss, and everyone has to play better on that team because we've now seen a way for the 49ers to get exposed. And how do you do this? Well, they lost their top running back. You play tight defense. You send some pressure on a young guy, and it worked out. I mean, Purdy was picked off yesterday. It was not so Purdy for the San Francisco 49ers, and they lost. Now, I
And
think
it was
they'll
not
rebound.
irrelevant.
Yeah, he played closer to Mr. Irrelevant yesterday than Mr. Irrelevant. That's true. But if we do a quick check of the 49ers schedule here, we look at who they play next, I think they'll be just fine. I mean, they're going to play the Vikings next Monday night. Vikings are a team that have been disappointing this year, but that's a game that the 49ers go on the road. Then they'll go and they play the Bengals. Could be a tough game, right? They got Joe Burrow coming to town, and then the Jaguars and the Buccaneers. I mean, they're facing, their next 4 games are 2 division leaders. And then the other 2 teams, Bengals, are starting to catch their fire, and Vikings did win yesterday over the Bears. So it'll be tough, but I think the 49ers will bounce back in a way that we might not have been able to see just yet. I think that's the sign of a good team, the bounce back ability, the rebounding ability of a team.
Can we talk about rebounding? Chris Collinsworth, I'm sorry to interrupt you completely, but it was too many basketball references. And Jake, I love my basketball. I've noticed it before over the years, a little bit too much. He was talking about like snagging a rebound, and I was like, all right, at that point, it's just the wrong reference.
Well, rebound in basketball, rebound also means like rebound,
Like come back on the next play and do well, but
right, or the team wants to rebound after a loss. There's a bounce back, rebound, turn things around. I think there's a bunch of words you can say that all mean the same thing. A bunch of synonyms.
I don't know. It's too much basketball there, and you want to talk about the tight end boxing out in the slot and catching the ball, whatever. We'll keep it with the rebound though. The Cincinnati Bengals, 17-13. They're now at 500. The Bengals take down former Jet quarterback Geno Smith on a 4th and goal to clinch a win over Seattle in Cincinnati.
Yeah, and you look at the Bengals season, it's been a season of mystery, right? It started, they came into the year, you had those high expectations. Joe Burrow was once again, one of the top quarterbacks in the league. Jamar Chase, a great receiver. And they start the season slow, right? Joe Burrow gets hurt. They're losing games that they should easily win. And then all of a sudden, they lose to the Ravens a couple weeks ago by 3 points. They showed competitiveness. Then last week, they come back to just beat the Browns. I'm sorry, that was 2 weeks ago. They beat the Rams 19-16. Then they fall flat on their face to the Titans, but then come back and they win. They end up winning over the Cardinals by 14 points. Joe Burrow looked really good. Then they come back and they beat a Seahawks team that's been sneaky good by 4 points. So you look at, they're 3-1 in their last 4 games now. They're starting to catch their mojo. And it was a tight game, but the Bengals aren't winning in ways that we're used to seeing them, right? Like it doesn't yet look like a Joe Burrow caliber Super Bowl team just yet, but it's a winnable division because that division.
He's got to find Jamar Chase. He's always open.
Just like 7-Eleven. Yeah, it's a definitely winnable division. I mean, the Ravens have not played that well. The Ravens just came back to beat the Titans. We'll get to that in a moment, but we've seen them lose to the Steelers 2 weeks ago. The Browns, yes, they got that statement win over the Niners, but to their standards, it's been disappointing. And the Steelers have quarterback questions, right? Is Kenny Pickett the guy? It's the same thing like you could say about Mac Jones. Is he the guy? It's one of those things where they have a below average quarterback and Kenny Pickett. So this division's still open, a lot of football left, and even if you look at the standings, they're not totally out of it just yet. I'm just going to pull up the standings real quick for the AFC North and see. So the Bengals are 3-3. It's crazy enough they're in last place, but they got plenty of time to move up. The Browns are 3-2. The Steelers are 3-2. The Ravens are 4-2. So, a Ravens loss and a Cincinnati win already puts them in first place. So a lot can happen.
Sorry, Jake. I was just going to say, we'll go across the pond and start with yesterday's initial action. Lamar Jackson and the Baltimore Ravens in a neutral site game, defeating Derrick Henry and the Tennessee Titans 24-16. 4-2 for the Ravens, like you said. 2-4 for the Titans. Lamar Jackson waited for his money, and he's playing like money.
He is playing well given the injuries around him, and that's that's the sign of a good player. But there have been some times where the Ravens have coughed up a couple games that they shouldn't have. But they did take care of business in London in a closer game than it should have been. Ryan Tannehill didn't play that well, but Derrick Henry did gash the Ravens defense for a bunch of scores and a bunch of yards. But the Ravens have not had a lot of pretty wins this year, but they've been a lot of gutted out, grinded out, slobber knocker games that they've had to come back and just barely hang on to. And it's a testament to a really good defense that they're running, a decent special teams, crew, and an offense that has Lamar Jackson, who at any point could take off. Although we really haven't seen Lamar in his prime yet this season. He really hasn't, whether it be injuries, he just hasn't looked comfortable. He's done enough to win at times, but never really, not putting up the 400 yards in the air and not seeing the 65-yard touchdown runs like we're used to seeing. So there's teams are starting to figure him out, but it is a nice win for the Titans moving forward. That's for sure.
Should we go back across the pond? Should we go home?
Sure. Take us
Jake,
home.
Your Miami Dolphins, 42-21. Your home team, Miami Dolphins, even though I know you're a Raiders fan, we'll get to that next. But your home team, Miami Dolphins, 42-21. They're 5-1. Tua Tagovailoa, 3 touchdowns, 262 yards. The Dolphins' only blemish coming against the Bills a couple of weeks ago. Are the Dolphins going to win this AFC East?
I've no one has been a bigger Tua Tagovailoa hater than me. I've given him nicknames. Tua turned the ball over. I've given him the nickname of Tua the Terrible. I have not liked him from the get-go. And last couple of years, when he first started his career, I was pretty much spot on. Last year, he really opened some heads. Turned some heads. I thought it was a fluke.
You would talk about a guy playing through injuries. Sorry,
Yep.
Continue.
Yep, injuries. I thought it was a fluke. I didn't think he was good at all. And to be fair, his first couple of years in the league, he didn't have a lot of talent around him. Then in the offseason, they go out and they get Tyreek Hill and Waddle's playing well, and he's starting to throw the football really well, and he's starting to look like an MVP candidate, which pains me because I did not like him, like I said from the start. So he's been one of those guys who's been proving me wrong lately. And the Dolphins are a team that will be carried by its offense. The defense, as we've seen, is pretty leaky. I mean, they started this game down in a 14-0 hole. They had to come back to win 42-21. And the offense, they basically outscored Carolina to come back and win that game. And that's been the theme of the Dolphins. They're going to have to outscore people to win games. We saw it kind of crash down against Buffalo a couple of weeks ago. Then they got manhandled 48-28 or something like that. But I think the Dolphins moving forward could be a threat. You look, the Jets, probably not this year because Rodgers is hurt.
No. It's a two-team battle in both the NFC East and the AFC East. It's Dolphins and Bills, and it's Cowboys and Eagles. One of them will get a wild card. The other will win the division. There's only one team now that gets a bye, and it's those two. It's those two in both of those divisions. I don't want you to respond to that though, because your Raiders, Jake, in Las Vegas, 21-17 winners over Mac Jones and the New England Patriots, who can't win a game. They're 1-5. They won one game, but they're not looking great. Better game for Mac Jones yesterday, 200 yards, 1 pick. But your Raiders, Jake, with a big win to get them to 500.
Yeah, I've been a diehard Raiders fan for pretty much way back in the day, from the moment Jerry Rice left the 49ers and joined the Raiders, and about 22 years ago now, long time. They haven't only been to the playoffs, I think, in my lifetime twice, maybe 3 times, and it's been disappointing. But
and Jake, we've been live on FaceTime watching with 8 seconds to go. The Raiders get the go-ahead score and lose.
It happens. It certainly happens. It's tough, but this season, obviously, I was a big fan of Derek Carr. Let him go. They're bringing Jimmy Garoppolo because Jimmy Garoppolo has proven he can win big games. The problem is he was on a much more talented team, so he didn't have to do that much. Now they're asking him to do a lot. He gets hurt. They've already played 3 quarterbacks this season in 6 games. Somehow they're 3-3, and the defense has played them well. Max Crosby last week forces the pressure that allows the Raiders to pick the ball off in the end zone to beat Green Bay on Monday Night Football. They come back to beat Mac Jones. I mean, they're not significant wins, but a win is a win, and the motto is just win, baby. And that's exactly what they did. A close game against a big and a rivalry game, right? The Raiders head coach used to be offensive coordinator under Bill Belichick when he won all those Super Bowls. The Raiders GM came from the Patriots brass. Jimmy Garoppolo used to play for the Patriots. Jacoby Myers used to play for the Patriots. There's a lot of ties here. The Tuck rule goes back to Brady 20 something years ago. So it's a game. The Raiders fans obviously hate the Patriots and their fans and stuff like that, but it was a big win for them. They hung on late to win thanks to a Max Crosby safety. And the team is suddenly 3-3, and they were there's a point where they were 1-3. So they're kind of turning things around, and see if they keep it going. They get a bad Bears team on Sunday, so it's certainly possible they could rattle off 3 straight wins. But the team doesn't look as good as I think they should be.
Yeah, but the Bears are trash. Jake, we're gonna go backwards one more time before we go forwards. The Kansas City Chiefs, the reigning Super Bowl champions, 19-8 victors, to kick off Week 6. They're on Thursday Night Football. 9 catches, 124 yards from Taylor Swift's boyfriend, Isaiah Pacheco, the second or third year running back out of Rutgers, 16 rushes for him, 62 yards. Is it the Chiefs' Super Bowl to lose?
I still think they're going to get there. The receiving core isn't as good as it was last year. I still think they'll be there though, because until you can beat Mahomes, until he goes down in the playoffs, you can't say he's not the favorite. So I think it is the Chiefs' Super Bowl to lose. Obviously, a lot of football left, but the Chiefs still look like a decent team. They're not blowing people out again, but I think they'll be right where they want to be because they have that guy, Patrick Mahomes, who many will say is probably the league's most talented quarterback. He's probably the best quarterback in the league, and until he either retires or gets hurt or isn't at the level he's at anymore, he's going to be the guy for the long term. And I don't know how you can't say. And the thing is, Kansas City's defense is actually playing quite well as well. That's what's helping them out this year as well.
You're definitely right. And most importantly about Patrick Mahomes, his dad was a reliever for the Mets. Looking forward to Monday Night Football, Dallas on the road in Los Angeles taking on the Chargers. Cowboys 3-2. Chargers 2-2. They've already had their bye week. The Dallas Cowboys 1.5 point favorite, significant to some. The over/under 50.5. Jake, strictly for entertainment purposes, does Dallas cover the 1.5?
It should be a close game, but I think the big thing I'm watching tonight is Kellen Moore, the former Cowboys offensive coordinator that now is calling plays for the Chargers. So I'm sure the Chargers will try to tap into his intel and see what the Cowboys might cook up tonight. But I think these are the type of games where Dallas doesn't seem to play well in prime time. When in the standalone games, Dallas has struggled, and for whatever reason, year after year. So I mean, obviously not in Week 1 when they lambasted the Giants, but I think this is a game the Chargers will win. I think I've said a while, Justin Herbert's, in my opinion, I think the biggest arm guy in the league. I think he's one of the most talented players. He's right up there with Mahomes. So I think it's a game that Dallas will lose, but I don't know if it'll be a 1.5 point thing. I think
you're easily taking Justin Herbert over Trevor Lawrence.
I would take Justin over. Yep, even though that Trevor Lawrence beat him down 27-0 in the playoffs here. Yes, I would take Justin Herbert. That's correct.
All right, Jake, and again, strictly for entertainment purposes only, the over/under 50.5.
I would go over on that.
Because of the Chargers offense? See, I might go under. I think Dallas's defense, and we know, what Micah Parsons and company are capable of.
Yeah, I mean, and that's why they bet. And that's why they play the games. But I think points will be at a premium, and I think you could have a mini type of shootout situation. I think it could be a 4 or 5 point game. So, if you have 28-24, 35-21, so I just think you'll be over 50.
And Jake, you might have missed it on SportsCenter, but I made a stellar buffalo chicken dip yesterday. And it impressed people here that came over to my home to watch the Jets take care of the Eagles. Jake, your favorite football meal?
Favorite football meal? Well, are you considering the buffalo dip a meal, or is that a snack?
You know what? I don't know. I'll consider it a snack. A favorite football snack, sure.
I would always go with the classic chips and queso. The chips and cheese. I think.
Are you the spicy queso guy though?
No, I don't do. I like sweet things. I don't do spicy things. I like the The most spicy thing I do is the sweet and sour chicken.
Have you had General Tso's chicken? That's a
Yeah, but
little
I don't.
spicier. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm not a spicy guy. And once it gets spicy, I gotta grab the milk, I gotta grab the soda, the beer, something to chase it away because it's my body doesn't react well. So something sweet, definitely. I'm more of a dessert guy. Maybe a pumpkin pie, an apple pie, some ice cream. Can never go wrong with ice cream during a game.
No, I agree with you. And I was able to have some I believe it was vodka yesterday. That was a good palate cleanser. Jake, any final thoughts here to add?
Was it cinnamon babka or chocolate babka?
Oh, it was chocolate, and I much prefer chocolate.
Oh, I like cinnamon, but they're both pretty good. About babkas, it's a very underrated piece of cake, something something like that.
It's a pastry. It's a dessert pastry.
Yeah, I'm a fan. I could go for a piece now.
All right, Channel 3, Jake Siegel, WSIL sports anchor. Jake, thank you so much for coming on. Wex on, Wex off. I tell you guys who the next guest is, but I have no idea. This will come out when I feel like it needs to come out again. This is Wex on, Wex off.